Welcome back to the Orange Peel podcast. Today marks a very big shift, I think, for this channel. As most of you know by now, my mission on this channel is very simple. We are using AI to build wealth, but we're using Bitcoin to protect it. But as this month, I've been kind of doing this whole digging into the system and auditing different things, I realized that I was missing a very, very critical piece. I was missing the architectural view. So, to counteract that, I am starting a new weekly series, and I'm bringing on someone who has spent over 20 years in the engine room of computer science, building the very tech that we're now trying to transcend with this generation. He is a veteran software engineer, a CS architect, and of course, a Bitcoiner, but most importantly, he is my dad. So, Dad, thanks so much for doing this. Every Sunday, we are going to sit down for a long form, no BS conversation about the code, the cash, and the career strategies that you need to survive the 2026 AI transition. So, this one is for obviously the students, obviously for Gen Z, but it's also for the parents, the builders, and honestly, anyone who's tired of surface level crypto, Bitcoin, AI hype. So, Dad, thanks again for coming on, and let's get into it.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
All right. So, I'm sure you've seen this week, Bitcoin is back up. I think midweek it was consolidating at around 95,000 US dollars or something like that. And then obviously we had big AI news this week as well. NVIDIA is teasing their next gen Rubin platform. And there's a new kind of crypto market structure bill that was just introduced in the Senate. Now, the Clarity Act. And you know this better than I do, but I was looking at the news kind of this morning or yesterday morning for me. And there's a massive push in DC right now with the Clarity Act. And at the same time, we're seeing, NVIDIA basically promised that AI infrastructure growth in 2026 is going to outpace almost like any analyst model on Wall Street. So, to me, it feels very much like we're watching this legacy world and legacy banking system crumble and try to put like handcuffs on the sovereign world that we're building with Bitcoin and AI because it's already moving too fast for them, right? So, as someone who, you've worked in this, you have coded at Bloomberg, you've seen what, financial institutions are like. Does this week feel like just another tech cycle to you, or are you finally feeling like you're watching code rewrite the rules of the financial game?
I think that's a very overloaded question. So let me try to
Okay,
peel
yeah.
the layers one at a time. Let's start with the NVIDIA chip, right? So what we are seeing is the acceleration in AI innovation is accelerating, right? And then the best way to think about this is the new Rubin platform that is multi-fold more efficient than their previous generation chips. Not efficient only in terms of performance, but also in terms of energy consumption, which basically means they can do a lot more with much smaller amount of energy. And the way I see it is this is only going to accelerate from there. You've also heard in the recent past and over some time as well, where Elon has started talking about building data centers in the space. So if you put all of this together, NVIDIA, Google with their TPUs, that tensor processing units, and Amazon is building their new chips for inference as well as the final training. So training as well as inference. These companies they'll keep innovating on the chip side, which will accelerate AI further. AI will get smarter and smarter. And if Elon is successful in building a data center in space, which he has all the right pieces for, thinking of from the SpaceX standpoint, Starlink, Tesla, Boring Company, if you put all of them together and you say, hey, he's kind of has all the pieces together, just has to figure out how to put this thing in space, in the orbit. And once you do that, you don't need cooling because space has much lower temperatures anyway. So the cost goes dramatically down. That's one of the biggest costs. And you have a source of energy in this, in the space, which we can never dry up, which is our beautiful sun. right? So if we can harvest energy from there and then are able to do that, I think this thing is gonna go through the roof very, very quickly. Now, what does it mean for the tech industry? I think tech industry, especially the legacy tech or software as a service, the SaaS companies, I think they're going to be the biggest losers of this year and this remaining of the decade. Why? The simple reason for that is these companies, they have relied heavily on um, building broken software and selling annual contracts in terms of subscription. And a lot of their customers had to stick with them because the migration cost was too high. So think of companies like, if you want to go large, then you'll SAP, Oracle Financials, in the recent past, Workday, ServiceNow, like all they do is sell subscription, sell subscription, sell subscription. And then, once they tie the customer, migrating out of it is very, very expensive. Now, what AI does is AI kind of breaks this cost down. You don't need to hire Salesforce experts anymore, right? Or you don't need to hire 50 of them. You can hire 5 of them and give them like 500 AI agents, and they can do all this stuff. And if these companies and if their customers are not hiring as much as they were in the past, these companies will struggle because their monetization of the revenue model has been revenue per employee, revenue per seat, right? If you have 5 employees, you pay for 5. You have 50, you pay for 50. You have 500, you pay for 500. And as their customers, grew their headcount in the past, that's how the revenues of these companies grew. That equation is going to change. So these companies are going to lose big time this year and rest of this decade. Who's going to benefit? Go ahead.
Well, I just had kind of wanted to butt in here and ask for, the people that are sort of worried about their long-term career paths who are in these, SaaS companies. What is going to happen? Where is the human in the loop? Is it the manager of the machines, or is it just like humans are just going to be so all around inefficient that companies are going to cut?
There will be human in the loop. I don't see a world in the near future where we don't need any humans. I think the final decision maker will still be the human. But what it does is you don't need, so for anything you needed, let's say 10 people earlier, you probably can do with 2 or 3, right? So a lot of people are right now, like I've had several conversations with my friends, other ex-colleagues and whatnot. And the biggest thing that people are worried about right now is AI cannot replace everybody. And my question, rebuttal to them is AI doesn't have to replace everybody. AI just have to replace the average Joe on the team. If AI is as good as average, that means half of the team is better than half of the team. And you can have infinite number of these AI agents that are better than half of your team. So practically you can get rid of 40, 50, 60% of the team and make the remaining a lot better. So if somebody's working in one of these companies, they need to become really, really good at using AI to improve their products, to improve their services, like get better at that, like be the best in your team, in your company, and don't don't be in your comfort zone. Don't sit down on, oh yeah, that's fine. I am a domain expert. Domain experts are dead. That term will be gone. It will be washed out from history very quickly because there is nothing called as domain expert anymore because you can give bunch of documentation to AI and become an AI expert in like 30 minutes with a consultant around you, which you can, if you still have questions, you can ask like, hey, what does this mean again? And you get an answer faster than the so-called domain expert.
So getting good at AI, then what does that look like? Is that just, learning how to use it, having conversations with like ChatGPT or something? Or is this, using it to write code, for example, instead of coding it yourself? What does this using AI look like?
I think it's a multi-fold thing. So the first step is learning how to use it. Right? AI at this point in time is only as good as the questions you ask AI. If you ask a very broad question, you're going to get a very generic answer. If you want very specific answers, very precise answers, your questions have to be very specific as well. Once you understand how to use it the right way, the next step from there is how you can bring AI into your everyday workflow. If you write code, leverage AI to become better at writing code. If you are, if your daily job doesn't require writing code, but requires creating slide decks, creating documents, whatever, bring AI into your workflow to become better at what you do. The best thing you can do today is figure out path for you to become 10x more effective and productive by leveraging AI. Because if you won't, somebody else will, and you'll be out the door very fast.
Gosh, that sounds so like pessimistic almost. But I think it's a very realistic point of view, and
Not
obviously, like,
pessimistic, think about it. We have this survival of the fittest,
yeah,
theory from way back when.
yeah, back to like Charles
That's
Darwin.
yeah, exactly, Darwin's theory, right? So it's nothing new. We are getting into a world where it's going to be highly competitive. And when it's highly competitive, you have to remain competitive if you really want to be part of that game. If you don't want to be that part of the game, sure, take it easy and you'll be shown door faster than anybody else.
Yeah, I guess even with this whole competitive thing, right? The world has always been very competitive, but I think the difference between obviously when you were applying for jobs, when you were trying to break into the job market, and when I'm trying to do it is you were competing with other people, essentially. Like, obviously, this was during like Y2K, but you were competing with other people. And so essentially what you had to do was just get really, really good at writing code. But I feel like the skills that are required have now changed because we're not only competing with other people, we're competing with these like all knowing, essentially like robots that physically we cannot not outsmart, but we cannot out knowledge, out encyclopedia the AI. So I could get like what I'm trying to say is I could get so good at writing code, and I feel like I could get the best grades, in all of my C classes and everything, but that's not really going to take me anywhere, is it? Like the skills that are required are completely changing. So, what are some of the skills that, you think are going to be most important in the coming years?
I think there is a couple of things, right? If you have hard skills, okay, but before we go there, like when I came out of school 20 plus years ago, knowing how to write a code was something special. It was a moat. There was high demand and very low supply. So industry could absorb all software engineers very, very fast. Now with introduction of AI and AI becoming better, that moat is gone. Look at what we have done in the last 20 years. In last 20 years, all the most powerful companies are based off of code. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Tesla to an extent, right? Even NVIDIA. Sure, there is chip, but NVIDIA's moat is their CUDA library, not just the chip. Right. And everybody in the world, every AI engineer in the world who does anything related to AI uses CUDA library. Right. So like at the end of the software was moat. And if you could write software, you were very valuable. You were very expensive resource and demand was high, supply was low. So people were, getting absorbed like crazy. Now that moat is gone because AI can write code, if not better than most, it can write code better than an average developer, like average software engineer. So if you go by that, then okay, writing code is commoditized. Like the incremental cost of writing code is practically zero. So what is your moat? What is your skill? So there are two paths, right? One is having real hard skills, right? Hard skills could be trade school, right? Plumber, electrician. Sure, one day, robots, humanoids would come and maybe you'll have a humanoid electrician walking into your door and fixing your electrical issues, or a plumber. But that's not happening anytime soon.
Well, in the Bay Area, we're starting to see those, like the Tesla Optimus robots that are like walking around and like starting to gain like the bodily autonomy.
Correct. But But the catch is, when you talk about trade school, there is not only skill, there is a regulatory aspect. You
That's
need a
true. Yeah.
license. You need a license to become an electrician. You need a license to become a plumber, right? And I don't see a world where government will start issuing these licenses to these humanoids, at least anytime soon. It will happen eventually. It will happen. But I don't think it's going to happen like tomorrow or in 5 years. So that's one side. The other side is there will be a world which to an extent exists today too, which basically refers to the human interaction, the human connection. So I believe hospitality industry would still require humans. Now you can expand this human connection into multiple things. You can take it down the empathy route, putting emphasis on the customer route. Like machines might optimize just for revenues and profits. But if you really want to say, hey, we want to put the customer first, you probably might need humans to intervene. And then there would be a creativity aspects. If you're a highly creative person who uses AI to become more productive, you'll be very successful because we all know go to YouTube, go to X, go to whatever social media you want. It's full of AI generated content. And we know it's sloppy. So the genuine, authentic human content would be very valuable. Similarly, I was talking about hospitality industry. I don't think I want to go to a restaurant and be served by a robot. Fast food, sure. If I'm sitting in a nice restaurant with my family, I would rather have a human come and talk to us and have a little conversation and get served by them versus being served by a robot there.
I'm curious on that. So with hospitality and maybe we can a little bit on like content creation, basically anywhere where we've got this genuine human connection. Do you think these are going to be careers that are going to have a big rise in like say the next 10 years, and B, do you think that these are going to be places that sort of like pay well because they've got that human aspect, which is going to be like really, really rare if we do shift to a world that's primarily run by AI?
So I think this pay well thing is an interesting aspect because right now we are in a double whammy, right? AI is a deflationary force, but we live in an inflationary world, right? These forces are competing. In dollar terms, everything is getting more expensive, but AI is trying to bring the cost down. So the way I see it, sure, might in a short term future, there'll be a lot of chaos. There'll be a lot of volatility in everything. Inflation numbers, you'll see, they go up 3 months and crash another 3 months and whatnot. But eventually, I think the middle ground would be where AI drives inflation, which pulls the prices down. But as we know, the way our government, United States government, as well as pretty much every other government in the world, they have been in this business of money printing. They need inflation to keep the system running. They will be able to inflate the currency large enough to absorb all the cost of deflation, which will on surface make it feel like, oh, the prices are not going up as fast. What do I mean by that? Like, so let's take an example where, let's say AI puts a 10% deflationary force on everything, right? Because we start using AI, everything's prices should start going by 10% every year. We know from the history, for like 70 plus years history, our debasement rate is about 7 to 8%. Right, so they keep inflating the currency by 7 to 8%. And they keep the target of inflation at 2%. But this deflationary force of 10% gives them a room to basically say inflate the currency at 12% and still maintain that 2% target. And using this inflation is how they will generate ways to pay the citizens. I believe there will be a mix of you make some money and there will be help or subsidy coming from the government. And that's the reason governments want control. In that world, it would feel like, look, everything is under control because the prices aren't going up as fast. But you're not realizing that if we took the government out, the prices would actually be going down very fast, not going up slowly. Am I making sense?
Interesting. Yeah, no, you're definitely making sense. And we'll come back to this governments want control part as well, because I just did a video on that. But so what do you think with, with government subsidies, do you think we're going to start seeing somewhat of like a universal basic income coming into play? Like, are people going to start just getting a flat out, stipend from the government to spend just even if they don't have jobs? And what are your thoughts on UBI as well?
Am I a fan of UBI? Is it practical in today's world? No. But would it happen anyway? Yes. Now, why am I saying all this? Humans, the way humans have grown, the way humans have evolved, we generate income or wealth by adding or providing value to others. That's historically how it has been. Now, even if you run a business, you're adding or providing value to others. In return, they pay you money. You use that money to buy whatever you need to buy, assets or whatever, consumables or whatnot. In the UBI world, you get paid to do nothing. So if you're not adding value to others and you're just consuming, the society would be very weird, to say the least. I don't know how. And I also believe that if humans are not using themselves constructively, they very quickly become destructive, right? So that's the reason I don't like the idea of UBI. Is it practical? I say no. And just keeping you as an example, today the poverty line for a single income earner is about $16,000 a year. Assuming about 300 million people in the United States. Do the math. 16,000 times 300 million is $4.8 trillion.
Yeah. Wow.
So hear me out for a minute. That is roughly our total tax revenue in the country today.
Are you kidding?
I'm not.
Oh my
4.8
gosh.
trillion is about our like roughly 4.8 to 5 trillion, something in that range.
Yeah.
Exact number might be different, but in that range. But we spend close to 7 trillion. So there's a 2 trillion deficit. Now in world of UBI, this tax base will fall off a cliff because guess what? When you don't have jobs, you don't have incomes. When you don't have incomes, guess what? You don't pay any taxes, right? Sure, there'll be some corporate tax, some other types of taxes, consumption taxes, sales tax, whatnot. So the tax revenue might not go down to zero, but won't definitely be where it is today. We are already running a 2 trillion deficit. We're already sitting on a 38 trillion debt, not counting the, all the entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, and whatnot. If we add another $4.85 trillion of UBI on top, which means our deficit will go from 2 trillion to, let's say, 6 trillion, assuming this, we still have about $1 trillion worth of tax base remaining. And guess what? $16,000 a year is not a lot of money to live in the country, anywhere in the country for that matter. There's a reason why it's called poverty line, right? So is it practical? No. Imagine if they've said, we're going to pay everybody $50,000 from 16,000 to 50,000, 3x. That means our deficit will go from 6 trillion to 16, 17, 18 trillion a year. How are we going to pay for it?
I was gonna, because I'm struggling to understand where that money will come from, right? If we're seeing our tax based, if our tax base, if that's getting debased, and we're as you said, going from what 4.8 trillion to let's say $1 trillion in taxes, but then you've got this huge chunk of like $4.8 trillion that the government needs to give out to Americans. They can't just like be printing all of that money, right? Like that's
the reason I'm saying it's not
enough.
practical.
Yeah, but so it's just, would it be safe to say that UBI is just not something that we can see for the future at all, or is it not practical in today's day and age?
I don't think it's practical, but guess what? Politicians, no matter what party, no matter what country, politicians only care about one thing. And that thing is they want to get reelected. They don't care about anything else. So they will do whatever they can to make sure the voters in their constituency vote for them. If that requires printing money, they will print money. And both parties love to spend money. So it's not a blue versus red debate. Both parties do exactly same thing. Every country does exactly same thing. It could be, you can take China, you can take Europe, you can take India, you can take whatever. All countries love printing, right?
Yeah, I mean, evidently, I don't want to, say too many bad things, but if you look at what's happening to the rupee as of late, it's not. I mean, to do worse than the dollar right now is definitely not a great thing.
So here's a fun fact. At this point in time, dollar is weaker against every other currency, right? If you live in Australia, just do the comparison between AUD and USD over last 1 year.
Yeah,
AUD has gotten stronger,
yeah, and the USD has
right?
gone down.
But INR has gotten weaker.
Yeah.
So something is going on that world where every other currency against dollar is getting stronger, but rupee is getting weaker against dollar, which is getting weaker. Right. So, and we can delve into it if at some point in time, probably a conversation for another day. But building onto the same thought, I see a world where the tax revenue will have to come from AI. That's how they will fund the eventual UBI, or what Elon calls as universal high income, UHI. He basically believes that we are getting into a world of abundance. And guess what? When there is abundance of anything, the prices go low. So, and I think one basic way of thinking about this is you take any company today, a large percentage of their expense is labor. Skilled labor, unskilled labor doesn't matter. If a company generates $100 in revenue, they spend 50, 60 just in salaries and benefits and whatnot. And then there is raw material cost, and then whatever additional costs you have, rent, utilities, whatnot, and then whatever is remaining is your profit or operating income, where you're basically saying, I made 100, I spent 80 in producing this, taking care of our salaries, rents, everything. 20 is remaining, so 20 is my income. On this income, I'm going to pay taxes. Now, if AI will help drive this big portion of the cost down or as close to zero as possible, suddenly the operating margins go up, right? So the company that was making $20 on $100 income now probably is making 50 or 60, because this 50, 60 cost of labor goes down to 20 or 10. So they should be able to pay more taxes.
Okay, so companies are going to start getting taxed higher.
Companies are going to be taxed at a higher income base, not a higher percentage. Higher percentage taxes are a doom era, right? So they don't go there. Like that never yields anything good. High taxes never yield anything good.
Okay, but it's just because they'll be making more money, that more of that money, so the proportion increases. Okay.
Now, the counter argument to that is, if the customers don't have jobs, how are they going to buy stuff? So, for example, if a lot of people lose their jobs, who's shopping at Amazon? Who's subscribing to Netflix? Where are you paying it from? Okay? So the government has to keep that wheel going. I don't expect Jeff Bezos coming out and saying, okay, I'm going to send you a check of $1,500 so you can spend that on Amazon. Not going to happen, right? So government has to step in between. So that's one side. The other side is, today government taxes the employees, but I don't think they'll be able to tax AI agents. Why? Because AI agents don't require authorization to work anywhere. They don't have a tax ID. They don't take an income. They don't have to, because they don't have to feed themselves. Anything they need to feed themselves is electricity and compute and a little bit of storage.
Mm-hmm.
I think what probably will happen is government will have to change the tax structure. So instead of charging taxes at the end, the income or the profit standpoint, they probably will say, okay, We will charge you in terms of how much energy you consume. If a company consumes 100 units of energy, you're going to pay this much tax. If you consume 1,000, you pay this much. You consume 10,000, you pay this much. If you consume 10 million, you pay this much. And everything downstream from that, we don't care.
Okay. So you're saying that we're just going to see like the commoditization of energy itself.
I think energy will become the primary thing.
Okay.
Energy will feed everything. Energy will become the monetary base of the future. And that's how Bitcoin fits into the picture. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is essentially energy, right? Backed by math.
Right.
To mine a
Okay.
Bitcoin, it requires a enormous amount of energy. And the only way to kill Bitcoin is kill energy from the world.
Yeah, and you can't do that, so you can't kill Bitcoin. So it sounds like we're going to be needing a lot of energy in the future for obviously for mining Bitcoin and then for not mining, but for supplying energy and compute to these AI agents. Where is that energy going to come from? I know
Very
like one
interesting question.
thing, like a lot of people are worried with AI and essentially Bitcoin, right? I have conversations with my friends who are more knowledgeable on the global warming crisis than I am, but their biggest worry is like this takes a lot of energy and subsequently is really bad for the environment, is what I'll say. How are we going to, push for a world that's functioning on AI and then using Bitcoin as its monetary currency, I guess, monetary base, when, these things are so bad for the world that we live in?
Let's put aside the global warming, the environmental impact of energy for a minute.
Okay.
You live in a world where everybody, like back in the day, 300 years ago, 500 years ago, the battles used to be fought with swords and spears. Then one country develops guns. You're not going to go to war with the sword when the other side has a gun, right? So right now, people don't want to acknowledge this, but we are in an AI war. Do you think if America or Western world stops, China is going to stop too? If we decide to slow down, will China slow down too? I don't think so. Guess what? Look at the energy chart, the energy production charts. In last 30 years or so, the energy production in the US is a flat line. The amount of energy that was produced 30 years ago is practically the same amount we produce today. China is vertical, up and to the right. And you are seeing today the bottleneck for AI is not chips. It's not NVIDIA can't produce the chip fast enough. It's not even the storage or anything. The biggest blocker right now is we don't have enough energy. So very recently, I think this week itself, there was a conversation where Microsoft's president came out and basically talked about it. And they said, we will make sure AI infrastructure build out will not increase the cost of energy for the consumers. What happens when law and demand, if energy
Yeah, if the
demand for
demand
energy in a
increases.
small area increases, the price will go up. So they are basically saying, no, we will make sure that we pay for it. You don't have your home consumption of energy should not go up. So all of these companies are right now figuring out ways to build energy production as fast as possible. And that is the reason suddenly nuclear power became hot. Everywhere nuclear power is bad. And suddenly it's like, no, this might not be actually bad. Burning coal or burning oil to produce energy might have been bad.
Yeah.
A small nuclear power plant might not be bad. I think there are some people can argue about windmills and whatnot. I don't have an opinion on whether it's good or bad. But at this point in time, we need all forms of energy as fast as possible. And this basically connects back to if somehow we can find a good, reliable way to harvest energy from sun in the space, guess what? We have solved the environment problem.
And we've solved the energy problem.
We've solved it. We're consuming energy from sun, which is there
Yeah.
anyway. We are not, releasing a lot of carbon into the in the entire environment to cool down this because it's naturally cooled in the space. So you might
Yeah.
have solved the problem, right? So it all makes a lot of sense. But at this point in time, I don't think we have an option to slow down, or any country has an option to slow down. Now, here is the thing. We don't want to live in a world where one country's AI won the game and that country has total control over the world. Competition is good. Having 2 or 3 strong AIs competing with each other is better than having one monopoly. Now, would I love for US to win? Yes. But would I love for US to win and take it all? No. Likewise, I don't want China to take it all too, right? I would rather have US, China, and probably some other countries have their strong contenders and they all keep each other in check. So it's the same thing, when one country builds nuclear weapons, the others have to build nuclear weapons just to keep this one in check. It's the exact same scenario. There's nothing different here. So at this point in time, if somebody wants to talk about environment and this and that, the choice is between, do I want to continue to live free or I want to continue to live as a slave or die? I would fight to live, and I'll, at this point in time, environment can take a backseat for a few years.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think obviously you seem to have a very, very bullish standpoint on AI and what is coming in the future with technological innovation. But this isn't something that's accessible to, let's say, the normal person who doesn't really have an interest in it, right? There's not a lot of welcoming sentiment around this. I think when we go online to search, what's happening in AI, the first thing we see is like, this week in AI, something really, really bad has happened. This week in AI, we've had deep fakes on somebody that's been made and like circled around. So there's a lot of, fear and people viewing AI as a threat to society. And, we've had conversations about this, and I've asked you this before, but I just want to touch back on it again. You view it as a tool. Like AI is a tool, and it's entirely like trying to regulate AI would be essentially trying to regulate a pencil for artists. But do you think that governments are going to try anyway, and would that affect or slow down the transition or the race that we have with other countries?
I think, would politicians try? I believe 100%. Should AI have some sort of regulation? Sure. Like there should be some checks and balances. Like at the end of the day, we can't forget there are a handful of companies that are building these AI models, right? If we let them go completely unchecked, we don't know what kind of, like they might be building something that benefits just them, right? So there has to be some checks and balances. But I don't think at this point in time, slowing down is an option. If politicians slow it down, we might not even have a country to fight for, right? Like that's my take. Again, I am bullish on AI, and like any other tool, can AI be used for wrong stuff? Sure. Dollars have been used for all the wrong stuff for centuries. Does it make dollar bad? No. Guns kill people. Does it make guns bad, or the people use guns to kill, right? Deepfakes. Were deepfakes not a thing before? They were. Yeah, it took more time to create ones. Like we've heard all about, oh, this is Photoshopped image. That's not new. That has been around for, does it make Photoshop bad? Or the person who used Photoshop to create that image bad, right? So we can't blame the tool. Tool is as good as the person using it. If the person using it is bad, the tool is bad. So we can't attack the tool. We have to put checks and balances and guardrails so people using the tool to do harm can be stopped. Like, for example, has internet increased the amounts of fraud from the past? Hell yeah. Does it make internet bad? Can anyone imagine today living without internet? Can your generation imagine?
It's not even just my generation. Nobody can live without internet these days, right?
Like, but your generation grew up with internet.
Yeah, that's true. Like with us, it would be a complete change.
For you guys, internet was part of the household from day one.
Yeah, but I
I
like to
remember the
think,
world without internet,
yeah,
but you don't.
fair, fair. Yeah, but I think one thing is at least I like to think that you guys are a little more internet addicted than we are.
Sure, sure. Our generation is like more addicted. I agree. I 100% agree with that.
Anyway, not the point. So what you're saying then essentially is there's no black or white, government regulation on AI is good, government regulation on AI is bad. Like it really is all about nuance and what they're regulating in the first place.
So I would say too little regulation, not good. Too much regulation, not good. We just need to have that right spot. For example, like there are traffic rules. Let's say if they become too prescriptive, okay, the speed limit on this was 25 miles an hour. We're going to change it down to 5 miles an hour because there were some accidents in the past. Guess what you have done? You have increased the time to go from place A to place B by multifold. And now there will be more people who will try to break the law because they need to reach somewhere fast enough. If earlier there were 5% people, now probably 50% people will go faster than the speed limit. So being too restrictive encourages people to break. So you just need to find the right level of regulations to prevent the misuse, but still allow the innovation.
Okay. See, I get that, but obviously you're more knowledgeable on this than I am. So to me, it sounds a bit kind of just like a Goldilocks and the Three Bears situation. Like you're looking exactly for what's just right, but we're not really ever going to get what's just right, right? With government regulation. So we talked a bit about this earlier this week when I wanted to make a video on the Clarity Act, and then you were kind of like, why don't we do permissions instead? And then I touched a little bit on it in the intro. That's been a big thing this week, and not to like shift gears super fast, but like, could you just explain quickly what this bill actually is?
Without going into too many details, this bill essentially is a fight between banks and the crypto industry. That's what it is. Where, the banks, like very recently, somebody from Bank of America said, if crypto was allowed to provide yield, I think they mentioned the number 6 trillion, like $6 trillion from traditional banks would move into crypto. And like, huh. So if people want to go from a old legacy broken system to a better, highly performant, more neutral system, you're going to prevent them from doing that by putting law. So where I'm going with this is I don't see Clarity Act passing in its current shape in the near future. This will become, choke point 4.0, if you will, right? Where banks will try to do everything to strangle. They will try to drag it to the midterms. And if we don't pass it before the midterms, guess what? This is not going to pass because most likely House will flip. And if House flips, it will be a stalemate. It's not going to go anywhere. I know Bitcoiners, crypto industry is very bullish on it, but I don't see it that way. I see it could cause a lot more problems. And even Coinbase's CEO Brian Armstrong came out and said we would rather have no regulation, right, or something to that line. I'm of course paraphrasing, not exact words of his, but that's essentially the idea. So where I'm going with this is Clarity Act. We have high hopes in its current shape and form. It requires a lot of amendments to benefit the crypto industry or the Bitcoin industry. Doing that probably means killing the banking industry, but without banks, the government can't function. So, if you start putting the triangle, you think, what, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it there. There's no point of diving into that. And again, I'm not an expert. It's just a big, thick page. If anybody's interested, the PDF should be available on the internet. Go dive in it, give it to AI, and if you want interested. I'm not an expert on that, but in its current shape, I don't see it passing anytime soon.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. I had a follow-up in my head and then I forgot the follow-up. What else had I listed out? I guess the one thing that I'm sort of seeing with this is, do you think this is essentially like the bank's way of like pushing back against the move into crypto? I know we talked a little bit about this before as well, but we're going to see a lot of pushback in the next decade from the banks, aren't we?
Yeah, until we give them the full control.
But that's not something that they'll ever get.
And who's to say that they won't?
So they would get it?
Let's peel this apart, right?
Okay.
What has happened since 2024, beginning of 2024, when the first Bitcoin ETF launched? January 2024 is when it was launched.
I feel like all the big players have like
and BlackRock has acquired like close to 800,000 Bitcoin, if I'm not wrong, in that range. It's higher than Strategy. It's not even 2 years. Oh, it's just 2 years. Sorry, I forgot we're in January 2026. But just 2 years, and it already has about 800,000, which is almost 4% of the supply. In addition, they're allowing banks to custody, allowing banks to basically lend against it. Guess what is happening? A normal Joe, if he wants to buy Bitcoin, he would rather trust his Chase, Bank of America, Fidelity, Schwab, than going to Coinbase, buying Bitcoin, moving it to custody, into their wallet and protecting the wallet and the seed phrase, right? Because that's easy. It's the same bank, same the investment account, the brokerage account that they've been dealing with for years. It makes their life simple. Right? What it does to the actual asset. Now, asset is custodied by the banks. So banks want to get onto the rails before they yield away. So they want the part of it. They're not going to, because they know it's going to take them years to build the infrastructure. Sure, they want to, they see the technology, they're going to adapt to the technology. It's not they're not going to adapt to the technology. They have done that in the past too. Like in 2010s, there was a big push towards high frequency trading using algorithms. Banks adopted it because they knew software can make decisions faster than humans. And in high frequency trading, even the smallest delay could mean you'll either win or lose the trade. Like the advantage could basically change the direction of the trade. So they see this as an opportunity, but they don't want to be left behind. So they'll drag their feet till they actually build the plan. They build their own rails. So they are building the rails. They will provide. So the Genius Act that allowed the banks to create their own stable coins, right? The bill that was passed not too long ago.
Yeah.
The hope is, the banks hope that people will use their stablecoin. Now, the key thing that the stablecoin is another can of worms. We can go there if you want to. They want to come here. So they are talking about tokenization. So Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, he basically acknowledged that crypto is here to stay and tokenization is going to be a big thing. They need time to build the rails. They need time to build everything so they can tokenize the assets themselves and get their share from that market. So simple thing to remember is Wall Street is in the business of making money. That's the only thing they love to do. They don't care red or blue. They don't care anything. They care about making money. Larry Fink, Jamie Dimon are the two big players in this, BlackRock and JP Morgan. And these two guys, these two firms, they control large amount of wealth of America, practically the world. They're not going to yield away that easily. They're going to do everything in their power possible to buy themselves time so they can come in heavy-handed and say, hey, we are an equal player too. And then guess what? If you are a small company who started something around the crypto rails and then suddenly you're competing with Chase, every average person who has a Chase account are like, why would I go to you again? Like, I've been working with Chase for years. Everything I own is with Chase. My home mortgage is with them. My savings and checking account is with them. My mortgage account, my brokerage account is with them. My car loan is with them. Like, why would I put crypto here? The only reason these crypto companies exist today is they started when the banks were not allowed to, right? So I also feel that in fullness of time, all these small companies will either be acquired by big banks and then killed, or they'll just destroy. So only company that I see might succeed in this world is a company like Coinbase, because for banks to learn how to do custody is painful. Coinbase has mastered that art, and Coinbase has this service of prime custody where all the large banks, including Strategy, I don't know if they do it all or part of their holdings, but a lot of these people actually custody, even BlackRock, right? They custody with Coinbase. So companies like Coinbase will succeed. So they will either end up acquiring smaller companies, or the banks will start acquiring these smaller companies. But a lot of these companies will go belly up.
So what does this mean for exchanges? Things like River, Strike, Robinhood, all these things.
So again, coming back to the same thing, if your grandma wants to buy Bitcoin, she has a brokerage account at Schwab, and Schwab starts offering buying and selling of Bitcoin in her brokerage account. Why would she go to Coinbase again? Like, would she even care? She's like, okay. And most likely she probably doesn't even have a online account. She probably still picks up the phone and call her banker and say, can you buy this for me, or can you sell this?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So I think this is one thing which I have a very different opinion compared to a lot of Bitcoiners. I know self custody is a big thing. I know it's important when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto. In that world, I'm not going to differentiate between one or the other. But self custody today, in its current way, shape, or form, is not conducive for an average Joe investor, right? We cannot expect an average Joe investor to be able to buy it on exchange, go buy a hardware wallet, move it to there, take a backup of the seed phrase, secure the seed phrase, and oh, guess what? If you really want to be secure, you need to go to multisig. Oh, multisig, I have 2 of 3. Okay, I need to have 3 backups. I also need to keep remembering the derivation path, the wallet structure. I have to download a software from the internet that I don't know anything about. It's not easy.
It's
right?
really not.
And if I don't want to do that, I have to take a third party custody risk. Then would you take risk at a Strike, River, Robinhood, Coinbase, or even the smaller ones? Or you would say, I have my entire net worth in Schwab or Fidelity or Chase. Why don't I just buy there?
Yeah, I'd stick with the banks that you know.
Right. Exactly. So I think would self-custody become a real thing in the future? I believe so, but it will take a lifetime. I think for your generation makes a lot of sense, because you guys have half of you probably don't even know what Schwab or Fidelity or Chase are, because none of you use them as a brokerage. None of you use them as your bank account. You probably use Robinhood for your investments, and you probably use one of these neobanks like Wise or Revolut or something as your bank, right?
Yeah.
So for you
Yeah, I
guys,
do
it
think
might
this
be
is
easier
something
paths.
that has to be aged out, sort of. You mentioned earlier that you have a different perspective to a lot of other Bitcoiners on this topic, and
So I
that's
feel so. Let me finish my thought here, because that's where the difference in perspective comes. I believe there is a strong need for a self custody, no trust solution, which is easy to implement. Right now, ease usually is replaced with a third party custody. Like, you have to trust somebody to take, hold your Bitcoin for you, and you end up paying hefty fees. Some companies charge 0.5% to 1% a year. I'm like, hell no. You're just ripping these people off. How do you kind of that solution needs to be there. if we really want to promote self-custody. Without that, self-custody will not happen anytime soon.
So
As simple as
self-custody
that.
with ease, but no trust.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting.
So
Interesting.
self-custody also has few things. Like, for example, let's take an example of gold, because everybody compares Bitcoin. And let's talk about Bitcoin, not every crypto. Bitcoin, digital gold, gold, the real gold. Everybody understands custody of gold. If you don't want a third-party custody, you don't want to deal in paper gold, you go buy gold, have a safe in your house, probably in a secure location, put the gold bars, put in there, lock, save the key. No, nothing fancy. The second layer of this is, if the actual owner of this gold passes away, their heirs could pick up the key, open the safe, take out the gold, do what they want to do with it. Can we make it this simple with Bitcoin? Today, majority of the Bitcoiners, I can guarantee you, if something happens to them, their family doesn't even know how to access it. That's a real hard truth. And that's the reason you see all these companies that are popping up. Oh, we provide an inheritance solution. No, we don't need an inheritance solution. We need proper education, and we need tools that improve self-custody. Because if you bring third-party custody back into Bitcoin, you have lost the ethos of it.
Entirely, yeah.
And that's my differing opinion.
Interesting. I'm struggling to articulate my thoughts. Cause here's the thing, right? We put out that why I want BlackRock to buy Bitcoin video back in November. And that one, I was put it out because if you remember the first edit of that one was like, this is really, really bad. But then you were like, hang on, what if you framed it this way? What if what you said was, we need the 70 plus cohort, we need that asset base, or they have the money. We need them to buy Bitcoin in order for Bitcoin to do the things that we want it to do. So why is it that, some Bitcoiners are anti like Bitcoin ETFs? Is it purely because like it's not self-custodied?
So I think the hardcore Bitcoin maximalist, they think of Bitcoin as something that kills the government, that kills the federal bank. But let me be very honest. If you want Bitcoin to go to $1 million, to $10 million, to $100 million, that is not going to happen without the institutions. Period. Right? Unless institutions are involved, do you think the wealthiest of the wealthiest would step into Bitcoin? Like, if you want
Not at all.
Elon
Nope.
to allocate $100 million, $100 billion into Bitcoin, because he's worth $650 billion. He might dip his toes with 10, 50, $100 million. But if you want him to allocate $100 billion, a large portion of his net worth, he doesn't want to do it on some internet funny money, which no government, no banks back. And on top of it, again, Elon might not be a greatest example here because he's a techie, so he probably understands self-custody and everything himself. But let's say Arnold Bernard, who's the CEO of LVMH, assuming he's not a techie, I don't know, but that guy, or Warren Buffett, right? Great. He's 90 plus years old, worth $250 billion. If we expect him to put $50 billion, we can't expect him to learn self-custody. That guy still prints out the financial statement and does paper and pen, right? So we can't expect him to, learn, no, I'm going to download the Sparrow wallet or Nunchuck wallet or whatever. I'm going to run a node. I'm going to, connect my wallet to my node, and I'm going to go buy a couple of ledgers, and then I'm going to move it. And guess what? When you are moving, let alone $100 billion, but if you're moving decent amount of Bitcoin for the first time on chain, it's a nerve-wracking experience, right? Because you have no idea if it's going to reach the other side or not, right? And because there are no banks, you can't go and say, I sent the money, it didn't show up there, where is my money? You can't do that.
Yeah, that's one thing about self-custody, right? It truly is entirely your responsibility. And that's very daunting to people that are new and beginners to Bitcoin. So
Yeah,
do you
but
think we're ever going to see like,
hold on, hold your thought there, right? So the same thing applies to any other beer asset. If you have a gold bar and you were to
yeah,
give it to somebody else, if you lose it, it's entirely on you.
that is true.
You can't blame anybody. Oh, because of you, I lost it. Sure, you can go lodge a police complaint if you know if you were scammed out of something or you lost something. You want police help to find it, but it's entirely on you. So it's not that people don't understand self custody. It's just that Bitcoin self custody is hard.
Okay.
It has not
Interesting.
been simplified enough.
Well, I raise you this then. Say you are someone who you don't understand Bitcoin self custody yourself and you get scammed. Somebody is like, hey, I'll do it for you. Just like send me the Bitcoin and I'll put it onto this hardware wallet, right? And then that somewhere like gets messed up. Can you really go lodge a police complaint about that? Because that Bitcoin is you can't get back into that if the person that put it
You
on
can
the
lodge a
wallet is
complaint
gone.
against that person.
Yeah. But the
For
Bitcoin is
example, like
gone.
Bitcoin is gone unless that person still has it in custody and the legal system can get it back to you. Take an example, for example, FTX, Mount Gox in the past, right? These
Mm-hmm.
exchanges, when they went belly up because of fraud or because of whatever, people did not get back their Bitcoin. They got dollar value on that day. So if you had some money, some Bitcoin on, FTX in 2022 when it went belly up, you got back dollars at the price of $16,000 a coin. Let's say you had one Bitcoin at that time. Today, $16,000 doesn't even get you, like, it probably gets you less than 0.2, right? You had one Bitcoin, you got your money back, but you didn't get your Bitcoin.
But then does this not raise the question of whether or not you can trust institutions? Because FTX was an institution that still went belly up.
But that was not a regulated institution, right? Now, people would say, and that's what exactly the thing comes. I have been dealing with BlackRock and Chase and Fidelity and Schwab forever. My entire net worth is with them. My millions of dollars of portfolio is with them. My entire K account is with them. So all I'm doing is I'm taking allocation from my portfolio and putting into the other asset inside the same thing. These guys, they maintain large amount. They're regulated. They probably will be around. Most likely, they're not gonna like too big to fail kind of stuff.
Okay.
Right. So if
Okay.
you have a choice between a large institution, fully backed, fully audited, probably have government backing, versus a young startup with a 25-year-old CEO who wears Bermuda and never combs his hair, guess where you're putting your money?
Yeah, you're putting it in the trust of
Especially
institutions.
if you're a boomer or a Gen Xer, like who is at a point in life where capital preservation is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, see, this makes sense. I feel like now I understand kind of more on. I know that we need institutions, we need BlackRock for Bitcoin to get to that like K, not even 100K because it cost 100K, but for it to get to like the million, 10 million further down the line. But this raises a good question about Bitcoin adoption, global adoption, and how we can get Bitcoin to scale to more and more people. But I think that might be something that we should get into next week. This has been, I feel like we've covered a lot today. Yeah, wow. Okay, so to close things out then, we've talked about AI, we've talked about the skills that you need to sort of protect your career in legacy tech and to sort of enter your career in maybe not legacy tech, but in tech. And then obviously we talked about energy, we talked about Bitcoin, we talked about institutions. So for somebody that is young, or maybe for the parents of somebody that is young, what is a good starting point? Like, what is a good starting point for maybe somebody's kid is graduating high school? What is the first thing that they should do? Should it be maybe thinking about a college degree, or like should they just go into trade school, or where do you kind of fit on all of this?
Yeah. Again, I'm not against college degrees. Like some people have completely flipped and saying that that path is dead. I'm not fully in that camp yet.
Mm-hmm.
But my advice, my general recommendation is do not pay enormous amounts for a 4-year useless degree, that, definitely do some thinking about what would my income be, how much I'm paying right now, and does it make any sense? It's like return on capital. If you invest 200K in getting a degree and you're going to make 35K, guess how long will it take you to just recover that K? And don't
Good point.
forget the debasement, don't forget the inflation, don't forget the taxes, don't forget the living cost. Right. So that's the most important thing. So whatever degree you decide to do, make sure the degree is useful, gives you hard skills, and you're not just paying for a useless degree. Or if you can afford it, just as Elon has said, you go to college for the experience and acquire knowledge from other channels. If you're in that camp, if you can afford, if your parents can write a check for 200K for you to party for 4 years, sure, by all means, right? And one final thing, not a financial advice, my personal opinion, how I think is, if you have any sort of money, make sure you buy assets. I don't care what assets you buy. My favorite asset would be Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, S&P 500, real estate, gold, whatever you buy, do not sit on cash. Do not buy liabilities. Do not spend money on useless things, because when government starts printing, assets are the only thing they're going to save you.
Wow. Okay. This will be something that I will get into more next week, because I know this is a discussion that's happening in our house at the moment with Vivan going off to sort of graduating high school and everything. So we'll get into this next week. I don't want to make this episode too long. I think we're already at like an hour and a half or something like that. So
Great. Wow.
everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed that first segment of this that first episode of this segment. I don't quite know what I'm going to call it right yet. So if you have any name ideas, please drop those in the comments, because I'm struggling to think of like some fun like Bitcoin alliteration to do with like a family Bitcoin segment. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Dad, thank you again for coming on. And with that being said, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay orange-pilled. I'm your host, Nicki, and this is my dad, and we will both see you next week.